Hey, um, it's currently like pretty early, like 9 something a.m. And yesterday, when I saw the video that Rose put out on Instagram, I kind of knew. I kind of knew what was going to happen and cried. So I just kind of wanted to give a video on my thoughts of him, because I feel like I really haven't made a video about him specifically in a while. But I'm not gonna, no editing or anything in this. I'm just gonna like give my thoughts. If I cry, I cry. I mean, the first thing is, I guess I didn't really expect it. At least so suddenly, because I mean, you go all the way through the offseason, you're on the roster. Like, literally 4 days ago, I assumed he was going to be on the Grizzlies roster and they were going to make a pretty deep playoff run. But I mean, just like his career with like the injuries, like things can, you know. And I think we all wanted him to win a ring. I wanted him to win a ring. I wanted him to go back to the Bulls one day. But I mean, I don't know. It just seems like his whole career, there was like way bigger obstacles for him to overcome than a lot of other players who had it really easy, who maybe never got hurt. And that's one of the things that I think bothers me, is that like you see some of these guys who, for the maybe past few years, have gotten a better reputation than him. Maybe not peak for peak, but like just in the last few years, I've got a better reputation than him, and you know they're not as good as him, and never were as good as him, and they shouldn't be even in the same conversation as him. On the other side of things, there's also players who were seen as really good all-stars for multiple years, maybe made more all-star teams, more all-NBA teams, maybe that he outlasted in the NBA as a productive player. And I think that's impressive, because how long have they been wanting this guy to be out of the league? I think they wanted him out of the league from the time Cleveland traded him. And then he went to Utah and they waived him and they said, oh, it's over. And then he came back to Minnesota. He was their best player in the playoffs that year. And then he came to Minnesota the next season and he dropped a 50-point game, got robbed of an all-star game, which I'll talk about that too. You know, came in the next season with Detroit, probably could have been an all-star again that year as well. Next year with the Knicks, and Detroit to start the year. Made the MVP ladder. Was the best player in the playoffs for them as well. The Knicks the next season, he got hurt midway, like really third of the way through the year. Still was their best player at that time. And I think that's kind of part of the reason too. I don't know. It's like hard for me to accept it right now because like the guy just 2 years ago was like the best player on a team. And then all of a sudden, it's like the last season with the Knicks, like even his own buddy Tom Thibodeau did him wrong. Should never just like shove the guy out of the rotation. Like they made him feel like he was a bottom of the bench guy. He's not a bottom of the bench guy. He never will be a bottom of the bench guy. And I think he even realizes that because if he thinks he's going to be a bottom of the bench guy right now, he said, I'm done. Why would I keep playing? And then even last year with the Grizzlies, he still played good. I thought he played good. I went to a game, he got like 16 points. Was their best player in the game against the defending champions, Denver at the time. Thought there was a car coming this way. So that's just like my frustration with it. Like it's kind of frustrating how much he's been done wrong. The 2019 All-Star thing, like I was saying, basically the first time they switched the rule where it's like, oh, fan vote doesn't determine the starters. And even if that was the case, Adam Silver handpicks Dwayne Wade and Dirk Nowitzki to be in the All-Star game. And I'm a big Dirk fan, but a guy who averaged like 5 points a game gets in on the West Side. Not Derrick Rose, who's averaging like 20 points a game. He was, I believe, 6th in the league in three-point percentage at All-Star break. Basically, he was the Timberwolves' best player. I know Cat was good, but like that season, Rose was really their best player. Ask a Timberwolves fan. I know many. They'll tell you the same thing. But I mean, I don't know. It's really... It kind of reminds me, like, I guess this feels kind of like when he got traded from the Bulls. Because I wasn't expecting that either. I know, like, some people would make rumors for it, but, I mean, just 1 year before, they were the second best team in the East, and they had injuries. That next season, didn't think that would be, like, the end of that. So, I mean... Clearly, I'm surprised. Clearly, I wasn't ready. But I feel like that's kind of just been the story of his career. You know, you're not ready. Like, the fans are not ready. They're not ready for... No one was ready for him to tear his ACL. No one was ready for him to tear his meniscus. No one was ready for him to get traded from the Bulls. No one was ready for him to retire. I mean, to me, Derrick Rose is like the whole reason I like basketball as much as I do. I mean, honestly, like, I think I've said this before, like, my favorite sport most of my way growing up was baseball. I mean, I always played basketball. But, like, the more you watch, especially, you know, local here, like NBC Chicago, and you're seeing Bulls games every day, and you're seeing Derrick Rose just eliminate the league. And that's another thing that I'm probably proud of. I hope these guys don't come over here. But that's another thing that I'm kind of proud of, is that I got to see Derrick Rose in his prime with the Bulls at his best and to the end. Got to see him in person, on TV. I don't know, man. It's just like, I don't know. I don't think the retirement is hitting so hard for me, and I think so many others, because of how much he was a part of the game, how much he influenced the game. Look at guys today that are always compared to him. And so you see, like, I know obviously, like, there's times where he got hurt and he wasn't on the court, but it's like, it's gonna feel different when he's not there. He's one of the guys who, like, at least for me, like, the era where I had really started watching basketball more and more, like, was always there. Even if he was in a suit on the sideline. Like, and I mean, I guess that's the only positive, is that, like, maybe there is a slight sigh of relief that you don't have to worry about if he's going to get hurt or anymore. Because I remember reading a report, I believe it was his last season with the Bulls, when he basically said he wants to be able to, you know, not be sore and everything, like when he's at, like, his son PJ's, like, graduation. And I guess that leads me into, like, what's going to happen after he's retired now. Oh my God, something just flew right into my eye. Live reaction, as you can see. I don't know what this guy's doing coming over here. But it leads me to believe what's going to happen after he retires. I believe he's a Hall of Famer. I believe he needs his jersey retired by the Bulls. And really, that's pretty much all I asked for, because if the Bulls don't retire his jersey, that's pathetic. The Bulls are pathetic. Well, the Bulls are pathetic because I also kind of hate them right now because they apparently have too many roster spots to sign him to a little 1-day or 10-day contract so he can retire as a Bull. So they're pathetic. But I don't know. I think his whole story of persevering, he's not like any other player that you've seen that has had maybe injuries like this. A lot of other guys retire early, or they quit, or it's too much, you know? And it also stings for me because of some of my favorite players ever. Like, Kobe retired like 8 years ago, and it stung. Manu Ginobili retired 6 years ago. It stung. Brandon Jennings has been done playing for about 6-7 years. Steve Nash about 9 years now. Dirk about 5. Yao Ming since like 2011. And it always it stung because you don't want to see your favorite players retire, especially if some of them never won a ring. I know Dirk did, Kobe did, Ginobili did. But I always said to myself that, you know what, it's okay because you still have other players that you root for that you like at that point, you know? Now that the best player's gone, I really don't know, I don't know. It's really a good thing I woke up immediately and did this, though, because you wouldn't have wanted to see me yesterday, and you won't want to see me probably later in the day today, because I'm going to be crying. I have to work too today, and I'm going to be crying at work. That's going to be pathetic. So I mean, I don't even know who my players are now. I have an idea, but I don't know who I'm rooting for most now. I mean, I root for Damian Lillard, I root for Donovan Mitchell, Giannis, Jokic. Another guy I rooted for, Markelle Fultz, he's not even signed right now. So it's someone else even said the NBA is a dark place. So D Rose, it's a good idea for him to get out of there. I kind of agree. I do agree, because they've been wanting him to be out of the league for how long? They don't want to reward him, you know. Like I said, 2019, he should have been named an All-Star. I would say 2020, he should have been named an All-Star. And it always felt to me I know he got put on the MVP ladder in 2021 by a vote. But it always felt to me they should have done more. There should have been more of a reward for him after the injury. And I personally think it was probably the 2013-14 season when he got hurt after like 10 games that hurt those chances, because he was going to be named an all-star regardless. And it's all about reputation in this league. If you're away from being an all-star for a little bit, they're going to give up on you. So I really have no idea. Even though he had several all-star caliber seasons after that. I didn't even talk about the first Knicks season when he played impressively. Now this lady has like 3 dogs over here. She probably thinks I'm nuts too. I know I'm not going to get to say everything I want to say right now. But I will say that, like, to me, Derrick Rose is like a hero here. Michael Jordan's the GOAT. You might disagree, but that's what I think. And there's nobody that you could argue, at least from a basketball sense, that has that much love and appreciation from the Chicagoland area than Derrick Rose. Does it help that he was born here? Sure. But I also don't think really any player, that includes Scottie Pippen, Bob Love, who I met, Jerry Sloan, but I mentioned them too because they're also the only other retired jerseys for the team. None of them had a peak as good as him at their very best. Top for top. I mean, he basically set out a goal to win MVP, and he did. The youngest ever. And so, with the NBA being very hesitant, I guess is the word, to award Rose in the right way, at least over recent years, I really don't know if, like, what's going to happen with being in the Hall of Fame or if his jersey will be retired, but he should. I mean, Tony Allen's getting his jersey retired, they just said. Nothing against Tony Allen, but he's not Derrick Rose. Don't even think he lasted on the Grizzlies as long as Rose did on the Bulls. It was close, but, like, come on. Not to shade Tony Allen. Tony Allen's great. I'm not sure. I don't know what he's going to do now. I don't know if it's going to be like chest related. That's what it seems like from the video. And I just hoped, when I've seen all these reports recently, like, my only hope was that he would maybe go just one more year. Even if it wasn't a great year. But I just feel like he's a player who's earned that. He's a player who's earned a farewell tour, a right goodbye. Because nobody's going to forget Derrick Rose. As much as we talk about, like, every MVP's been in the Hall of Fame, and some people think, oh, he's going to be the first not to. He's had a way bigger impact on the game than probably half the MVPs in league history. Bill Walton's great. Hasn't had as big of an influence on the game as Derrick Rose. Neither has Wes Unseld. Neither has Bob McAdoo. If we want to be more recent, I don't think Embiid has. And that's not to shade those guys. It's not like I'm just saying those guys are the four worst. Those are the four guys I've just named right now. The other thing is that the NBA, well, the Basketball Hall of Fame has, I feel like, really keyed in lately on putting players in that should have been in. So now you have a lot of guys in there who I would probably consider just outside the top 100 all time. I mean, if he's even far off that, is Derrick Rose that far off the top 100 of all time? He's the youngest MVP ever. People would literally sit out games to avoid him in his prime. Remember the regular season when he swept the Big Three Heat? Like, think about how many moments he has, too. That's something you don't see from a lot of players ever. Put together some other great players in their highlight reels and everything. Highlight reels or just a compilation of their best plays. Even if Derrick Rose missed games in seasons because of injuries and he was limited or whatever, he still has put up better ones than a lot of those guys. But, and just to go back to the point of, you think about how many guys he outlasted, like, I mean, Blake Griffin's great, John Wall's great, Kemba Walker's great, Gordon Hayward's great, you know? And I only say those guys, like, to name a few, because all those guys came in after him. They all came into the NBA after he did. Victor Oladipo, who technically hasn't retired, but it's another guy. Like, I just think it's very, and maybe you could say, oh, well, this is similar for like someone like Grant Hill. But I think also because social media wasn't really as much of a thing then, you didn't hear it every day. You didn't hear every day that, oh, Grant Hill should just retire. Oh, Grant Hill's just never going to be the player he once was. And he actually did get rewarded with an all-star team in 2005. That's another reason why I thought Rose would in 2019, because if we're being honest, Rose in that year had a more deserving case than Hill did that year. But I'm only using these comparisons to just show that it always seemed like things were unfair in his direction. And he never ring chased either. That's the one thing you can say about Rose. Yeah, he was on some good teams, but he was part of the building blocks to making those teams great. I mean, the Bulls, when they were good at the start, it was all because of him. They were the 8th seed his second season, right? That did just lost Ben Gordon after his rookie year. Then they lost guys like Andres Nocioni as well, John Salmons. And so they come in your third year to set a lot of pressure on you and say, I want to be the MVP of the league. And then you are the MVP of the league because you lead your team to the most wins. Boozer missed half that season. Joakim Noah missed half that season. So he really built like the culture of Chicago for so many years. Even near the end, I know Jimmy was an all-star, Powell was an all-star. Who did they go to at the end of the games? It was Rose. Who hit the game winner against Cleveland? It was Rose. Who hit the game-tying shot against Dallas one-handed? It was Rose. Jimmy Butler's first game winner came the season after he left against the Nets. Like, I remember all these key moments because I watched every game. And I mean, you could say, well, maybe that makes you biased, but like, you just see who actually has the biggest impact on the team. He might not have been super vocal, at least younger in like his younger days in his career, but he was always a leader. And led by example, maybe in a Tim Duncan way. And maybe that's why it makes sense, I guess, that he retired in this way. But think about the Bulls there. You know, the Knicks, his first season. Probably the only disappointing season you could say from a team standpoint. But really, Phil Jackson was the biggest reason with that. Him, James Dolan. There was so much from the front office side of the Knicks that was really the biggest problem. That team probably should have been better. I mean, Cleveland, I don't even really consider that. He hardly played there. I mean, Minnesota made the first playoffs in 14 years. And without Rose, would have got swept. It wouldn't have even been close. You know? One could argue that with his leadership on the team as well, maybe they don't beat Denver in the last regular season game. I know he didn't have a great game, but just having him as a presence as well, it changes everything. Look at the Knicks when he came back, right? Because, I mean, he made the Pistons better than they were. But look at the Knicks when he came back. He made them a top 4 seed. Like, the Knicks hadn't done that in, like, almost a decade. And it only done that, like, how many times since 2000? I feel like when he, you know, was getting consistent minutes on the Grizzlies, they also played really well this past season. There was a stretch where pretty sure they won like 3 straight games. He had 3 really good games as a starter. Clearly the game I went to, he was the only reason they had a chance to win. It was the second game of the regular season. You can go check it back if you want. Last season. So, I don't know. I mean, I just want him to be honored the right way. Like, it sucks he didn't win a championship, but at the end of the day, a lot of people don't. I mean, look at other players like that came in around the same time. Like I said, a lot of those guys, from Blake to John Wall to Kemba to Gordon Hayward, none of them have won a title. I mean, Harden, Russell Westbrook, Gobert, Bradley Beal, Dame. Like, there's a lot of guys who came in around the same time that have never won a championship. Mike Conley. But some of those guys, a lot of people will tell you, should be in the Hall of Fame. So why can't the youngest MVP of the league in history, why can't he get his jersey retired? I mean, if there's any person, the Bulls really suck because they're just terrible. They already gave Joakim Noah's number away to Tony Bradley like it was nothing. That was cool. But nobody's worn number 1 since, so like fans would literally riot. I remember Michael Carter Williams tried to, Anthony Morrow tried to, and not saying it was right, but some fans gave him death threats. And they quickly, both of them just didn't think anything of it, especially because it was like really early, So I guess like there had never been an issue like that much prior. But I think that just shows like how like much the city cares about Derrick Rose. And it's a huge market too that does. It's one thing to put a very low market on the map because there's probably not a whole lot of history that goes there, or an expansion team on the map. But when you're doing that to a team who had, when he was there, because the Warriors have the 3rd most now, but the 3rd most championships of a team, the 3rd biggest market of any team, and you are a top 3. It's triple threes. Top 3 player in their history. How are you not? So I just want him honored the right way. I'm like really zoning out. I'm like starting to I just want him honored the right way, and he's earned it. I mean, to me, he's a hero. Derrick Rose is a hero. Derrick Rose is an icon. He changed the sport. I really don't even know like if this channel would be without him, because like I said, for so long, like, baseball was my favorite sport. Watching D Rose, I mean, it made basketball like a lot more fun. I'd always try to play like him. Like, maybe like growing up or something, like I'd have like people telling me, like even some of the people you guys see in videos, like, oh, you kind of like have like a little D Rose in your game, or you play like D Rose. And that's like the best compliment that I could get if I'm playing, because like that's who I look up to. That's who I watch the most film on, So I will watch every day. I don't care if Steph Curry and the Warriors, or LeBron and if it was Cleveland then, or LA, or Kevin Durant's playing. Like, I'm watching a Derrick Rose game. I don't care. I don't care. So I guess that's really a downside, because I'm gonna have to watch more LeBron. No. Like, it feels like, I know it's not exactly, because I mean, we literally saw the unfortunate side with Kobe, where a few years after he retired, he was gone. But in a way, a basketball retirement feels like it has feelings of like a player's death. Like, it feels like their game like it's over. So like it's the end. It's concluded. There's nothing more you can add to the story. I don't know. Hopefully now we can just, and I say we, I mean like everybody, because I always have, but people that have wanted to hate on him can like at least appreciate him. The fact he went 6.5 more seasons after they wanted him to retire, and actually had a lot of his, you know, great moments after that too. Maybe he wasn't MVP of the league or an all-star or averaging 20-something points a game. But I don't know. I feel like almost for that alone, like given the fact what he did at the start and then also like what he did after that, should get him recognized the right way. And I just checked the Hall of Fame list, like who's eligible and everything. Like, I don't see why he wouldn't get in. Maybe even first ballot. Like I said, a lot of the guys who they put in or wanted to put in, like, have made it. They've made it recently. Can't even think straight. Like, I mean, it already sucks when it's like you see this top 75 list and then he's like the only MVP not on it. Even though one could argue some of the other MVP winners shouldn't have been on it that were. I mean, I guess technically Jokic was the only other one that didn't too, but he had like just won it. I think we all can agree he's worthy of being on it now, obviously. And to be honest, I wouldn't have even, like, some of the things that made me upset with how things went is that, like, it just felt like unfair. Why did they even bring in Derrick Rose last year for the Grizzlies? What was the point? To babysit Ja for what? He played like 9 games. Like, if he was going to get hurt anyways, why didn't you just trade Rose then or waive him then? If he wanted to be out, I don't know, like, I don't know. I don't really know what else more to say. I will probably put together something else a little bit more special for Rose here. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know when it will be. But maybe it's just a video talking about his best plays, or you know, ranking his moments. I don't know what. I don't know. But right now I'm like, I don't know. I just am kind of like, I don't know what to believe. Like, I went to bed last night sad, crying for about like an hour, maybe even longer. And then when I saw the date, today's date on there, I'm like, well, something bad's about to probably happen that I'm not going to be ready for. I even put on like my Instagram story, I'm like, I'm probably going to be very emotional tomorrow. And fortunately hasn't so much in this video, although I did like tear up twice. You guys probably saw me rubbing my eyes a little, but so like, I really just kind of had a feeling like this would be what the announcement was. I mean, other people made good observations, like there hasn't been any workout videos this off season from him, which is rare. I mean, I saw him actually with Tony Allen, who I mentioned earlier, golfing like just a couple weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago maybe it was a little over 1 week ago, I don't know. And you'd think like, well, if he was going to be on the team, shouldn't he be with the team? But clearly this was planned up in ahead of time. Like, he was never going to be on the team this year because he wanted out, and this is why he wanted out. The other thing that I guess I am happy with is that while he didn't play, while he may not have played a whole lot of games last season, it was a much better season than the season before. The season before, the reason he didn't play games is because they just didn't even want to include him on the Knicks at the end. They kind of did him wrong, I feel like. And you could tell he was done wrong because players still want his services. You look at free agency, the Grizzlies signed him in the first hour of free agency last year. This is last year, even after a season like that. And I'm sure if he was a free agent this summer, he probably would have gotten a contract pretty quickly as well. But, I mean, I don't know if he wanted the Grizzlies to hold on to him so that nobody would offer him anything. I don't know if the Grizzlies were just being jerks, like holding on to him, and then they said, you know what, we'll just waive him, like, because he may not want to be here, whatever. But it almost felt like it defeated the purpose of him being there. So that's why I had a bad feeling about what was going to happen. All I'm going to say left is that D Rose really, I mean, kind of changed my life in a way. There's a lot of things that I do, or a lot of things I might try to do in a basketball sense. There's maybe like certain references that I base off of him, and I always will, because it's like crazy, because like, I mean, so far, like, as of today, I've never gotten to, like, meet him in person or anything. But it almost feels like he's family or something, you know? Like, it feels like he's someone you'll root for no matter what. Like I was saying, he's an icon. He's a trendsetter. He's everything, really, that the NBA is about. So, like I said, he helped inspire, like, probably this channel as well. And I think that's another thing too, is that, like, while like with my channel, like I mean, I think it's only right to continue to, I wasn't gonna, like, stop anyways, but, like, I think it's only right to continue to make content even better, you know? Because for me, when Derrick Rose got down, he always got back up. So if I have a slip up, like with making a video, or if I have a slip up, like I just perform badly in, like, a tournament or whatever it may be, like, that I could get back up. And I think, honestly, in a way, it's kind of fitting, given the last two, because that shifting 2v2 basketball tournament was so demoralizing for me. There's 5 people and 2 people win, and I'm not one of them. And even though I probably played basketball longer than anyone in the tournament, so that was demoralizing. And then to come back in the next one, which is the king of the court, and there's more people, a lot of people who have played, like, for a long time, and, you know, to, I guess, like, have a better finish, make a lot better plays, big time plays. Like thinking now, given what's happened since with D Rose, I feel like that's something that he would appreciate. And if he was in, like, a similar situation or whatever, if he was my age, though, he would have basically eliminated everybody, because when he was my age, he was the MVP of the league. But if he were in a situation like that, I'm sure he'd want to bounce back up, as he did every single time. And the other thing that's good is, to me, I don't consider this, the league didn't retire him. And I think people need to understand that. There's people that the league retires. My favorite player that probably had that happen to him is Brandon Jennings. Whether it's right or wrong, he basically never retired, because he went overseas. He said he was kind of done playing, but there was a long stretch of time where he wasn't even getting offered a contract. Whereas for Derrick Rose, I mean, he asked to be bought out a few days ago. This is one of the most tricky times of the whole year to sign someone. I mean, unless they were like a superstar, but no superstar is getting waived a few days before training camp. And so they even were saying, like, there might be teams that have interest in him. Like, I know they mentioned the Warriors, the Lakers, the Heat, the Bucks. And even though maybe those teams aren't great, like, in my opinion, for him to be a part of, and wouldn't be super great to watch the cast of them, I I still would watch and I'd support. Like, I may not be the biggest LeBron fan in the world. I may not be the biggest Steph Curry fan in the world, but if I had to root for them to, like, get Derrick Rose a championship or have one last successful season, then I guess I would, you know? And that's what's something, I think people don't realize that more, because maybe, I think, like, love for certain players in sports, like, it just doesn't go as noticed as the hate. And so when people see that, oh, I hate Jeff Teague, oh, I hate LeBron, oh, I hate Isaiah Thomas, Pistons Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, or players that I hate throughout history, like, they probably think that supersedes the good side of it, and it really doesn't. When Rose went to Cleveland, I wanted them to win the title, you know? Like, I like Michael Jordan, and obviously, like, him being like the GOAT, in my opinion, I would want that to stay. But I mean, I like Derrick Rose more. So it's like, if I had to pick and choose, like, that's where I'd choose. But it's a little, I guess, off topic, but trying to, like, not talk so much about the reason of, and just kind of talk about, like, my internal thoughts and stuff that have really been the theme of my thoughts over mostly ever since he tore his ACL, which I know where I was for that, by the way, too. I was in a movie theater parking lot. I don't know what more there is to say. I've been talking for almost an hour. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, how about a few more minutes? I just think people need to give him his flowers moving forward. Maybe now we can stop disrespecting him. Maybe now we can stop talking about the injuries and we can start talking more about the good days, whether it's the MVP year or his all-star appearances, his 50-point game, his game winners. Like, game-winning shots and clutch shots that he hit, there's not really a whole lot of guys that I can think of having more in the same era, you know? Like, what, maybe Kevin Durant? I mean, LeBron's played a lot of games, so he's probably up there. Kobe. I really don't know. There's not a whole, maybe like Carmelo Anthony, Joe Johnson. He's a slept-on one. Like, those are the moments that make games the best, in my opinion. And yeah, I just think maybe we can talk more about the good than the bad. It seems to have happened for a lot of recent players. Like, I remember when they were talking bad about Steve Nash before he retired, and now everyone's really, like, happy toward him, and you know, even like Blake Griffin and Kemba. Like, Kemba had an awful moment overseas where he was not hardly playing, and he was playing really bad when he was. But now we talk about Kemba in a good light. So can we just talk about D Rose in a good light? And like I said, there's two things that need to happen since. He needs to have his jersey retired by the Bulls, and he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. They said that the Bulls already said they're going to try to honor him in some way, shape, or form this season. at least there's rumors toward that. By the time this video comes out, there might be more. I kind of just woke up, saw the news right away, and really already kind of had an idea of what it was. But so I'm gonna see what other news there is. I'm going to yeah, I mean, I'm gonna see what other news there is, and hopefully those two things can happen. If those two things can happen, like, I'm okay. But now I'm gonna kind of be, I guess, when I was always so worried with like his injuries over the playing career, now I'm always gonna be like unsteady probably until that happens. So wish me luck, I guess. Probably gonna cry most of the rest of the day. I'm starting to get a little more awake now, so the more clips I see of him probably on social media, it'll probably be bad news for me. Sorry for everyone I have to see at work today too. They're gonna see me probably upset, and they're gonna be like, what's wrong? And I'm gonna say, my hero retired. And they might get it, but they might also just be like, oh, I don't know. I just wanted to get this out there because I was planning to do this yesterday, because I have to leave. I go out of town in like a few days here anyways, and I'm not even gonna have service, so like I'm like, I gotta record this like today in case something does happen, and then I can get it like uploaded and then just post it when it happens, and it's happened. So I'm always gonna love Derrick Rose. He is my favorite player ever. He is my GOAT. And I mean that in the sense where it's like, he's the guy I look at the most for basketball. Like, he made basketball for me interesting. He made basketball for me, you know, worth pursuing even further. So much so that this is a thing. This channel is a thing. And I'll forever be grateful. And yeah, I don't want to keep stalling. I'm just don't know really what else to say right now, but I love D Rose, and you should too. He's a hero. He's my hero. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.